I'm Sandhya. I'm your botany lecturer. In this lecture, we are going to discuss about the chapter Living World. I would like to discuss this particular chapter Living World in two subtopics. What is living and diversity in the living world. So the living world, and first subtopic is what is living. So before entering into the topic, before starting the topic, just few questions I want to pose. Like you are the students, you will be going to the college to different places. So while going to the college, what do you see around yourself? Yes, what do you see while going from one place to another place? What do you see around? You can see buses, vehicles, road, dog, plants, and dog. All these objects in the living, all these objects in the organisms you are going to observe. So in these things, the buses, the road, the vehicles, they are called as non-living things. Whereas the plants, animals, dog, bird, insects, the green plants, trees are all living organisms. So how are we classifying them into living and non-living? Okay, on what basis these particular organisms are called as living organisms? On what basis those buses, the road are called as non-living organisms? We are going to discuss. First, how can we say that an organism is a living organism? That is, what is living? So to say that an organism is a living organism, certain characteristics are there. Like generally, if I pose a question, how can you say an organism is living? You will the first and foremost answer that will become is growth. So growth, reproduction, many other growth, reproduction, then replicating, sensing the environment. All other are the characteristic features of the living organisms. But here we are going to study about the growth, reproduction, metabolism, ability to sense the environment, then interactions. In this one, these are the characteristic features, but few exceptions are there. And we are also going to study the main important characteristic feature of the organisms to say that it is a living organism. We are going to study about that also. So first, growth. So if growth in the sense, the growth can be increase in size, or increase in size or number. Size can also be called as increase in mass. So when there is increase in size and mass, then it can be called as a growth. When there is an increase in number also, then we can call it as a growth. Then like cell division can be called it as a growth in unicellular organisms. When they divide, they increase in number. There is a growth of that particular organism. Like for example, if you take plants are going to grow throughout their life. The cell division is going to occur, and the plants are going to grow throughout their life. Whereas animals are going to grow only to a certain age. The growth is there only to a certain age. Then if you take the non-living objects, also there is a growth. Okay, take for example a desert is there. First in the morning, a small heap of sand will be there. By the time the day passes and when it reaches to the evenings, the heap will be increasing in size. So here also there is increase in size, increase in mass, and number of sand particles also there is increase. So here also the growth is occurring, but the sand is not a living object. Okay, so it is a non-living organism. So hence we can say that growth cannot be taken as a defining property of a living organisms. Okay, growth means increase in size, mass, or increase in number. So in some mountains, like suppose in 2012 this was a small mountain. Then after 2020 this mountain will grow. So here also there is increase in size and mass, but this mountain cannot be called as a living organism. So they cannot consider that growth is the defining property of a living organism. Then coming on to the second property, second characteristic feature is reproduction. Reproduction is a characteristic feature of living organisms, but we cannot take it as a defining property. Why, we will discuss now. Okay, so reproduction can be of two types. It can be asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Like asexual reproduction in fungi. In fungi, it is going to reproduce by asexual spores. Asexual spores. Then yeast, it is going to reproduce by budding. Then some single cell organisms are going to divide by cell division. So there is reproduction. Reproduction means production of a new offspring, production of new cells, production of new organisms is called as reproduction. Reproduction. It can be asexual, it can be sexual. If it is asexual, so asexual spores in fungi, budding in yeast, fragmentation. Fragmentation can be observed in some algae. Algae, it is going to reproduce by fragmentation. These are the asexual means of reproduction in few organisms. In single cell organisms, we are not clear about the usage of the terms growth and reproduction. So after a certain period, like for example, if you take an amoeba, after a certain period, it is going to divide. Binary fission. By binary fission, it is going to divide. So there is a growth and reproduction. Okay. Then this reproduction property also cannot be taken as a defining property. Why? Because like in some animals, in animals like mules, sterile worker bees, then infertile human couples, they cannot reproduce, but they are living organisms. Okay, so the mules are animals, they are living, but they cannot reproduce. The sterile worker bees, they are going to do so much of work in the particular bee community, but they cannot reproduce, but they are living organisms. Like for example, infertile couples also. Few couples who are living, but they cannot produce babies. So hence we cannot say that reproduction is the characteristic feature or defining property of the living organisms. Then coming on to the another most important characteristic feature of living organisms is metabolism. This metabolism is nothing but it is the main defining property of the living organisms. If metabolism is there in that particular organism, that means that particular organism is a living one. It is the defining property of the living organisms. Now, what is metabolism? Metabolism means all the reactions which are taking place in an organism. See, so many molecules are like for example, an organism is made up of so many molecules. How are those molecules are formed? From small molecules, large molecules are formed. Sometimes what happens? The large molecules are broken down into small molecules. So many reactions are taking place. So all that reactions, the sum or total of all the reactions which are going to take place in a living organism is nothing but the metabolism. So all the reactions, from the combining of small molecules to form into large molecules and breaking down the large molecules to small molecules, all these chemical reactions, metabolic reactions taking place in an organism is nothing but the metabolism. This metabolism is, it will be there when there is a cellular organization. If it is a dead cell, definitely the metabolism is not going to be there. But if cellular organization is there and metabolism is there, then definitely that particular organism is a living organism. So it is the defining property of the living organisms. This metabolism can be divided into two types again, anabolism and catabolism. Like I told you, anabolism means from small molecules the large molecules are formed. For example, very good example is photosynthesis. How the plant is preparing the food materials? It is preparing through a process called as photosynthesis. From carbon dioxide, water, then in the presence of light and chlorophyll. So carbon dioxide, water, these small molecules are combining and forming into a big molecule, that is the glucose. So the photosynthesis is a very good example of anabolism. Then in catabolism, the large molecules are broken down into small molecules. Here the very good example is respiration. In anabolism, photosynthesis. So respiration, here the glucose molecule is broken down to release to form simpler compounds and release the carbon dioxide and water. So here what is happening? The breaking down of the large molecule is taking place, forming into a small molecule. That is catabolism. So both anabolism, catabolism together forms the metabolism. Then so without exception, we can say that metabolism is a defining feature of all the living organisms. Then next property is ability to sense their environment. Like means these organisms, they are going to react with the external stimuli. Like we are living, we human beings are living. We are going to react with the light, wind, water. All the environmental factors, we are going to show some reactions to the external stimuli, environmental stimuli. So this particular thing is called irritability. This is called as irritability. So so the external factors can be light, water, temperature, and pollutants. All these are the external stimuli where the living organisms are going to show their responses. They're going to show their responses. Then in plants, photoperiodism, the reproduction, the seasonal branching. Like some plants are going to blossom during night time. Some plants are going to move according to the sun. In the morning, it is going to face the east. By the evening, that particular flower is going to face the west, like that, in that sense. So they are showing some responses to the external stimuli. Photoperiodism, seasonal reproduction, seasonal breeding. This is observed in both plants and animals. Like for example, if you take polar bear, in polar bear, in winter it is going to undergo hibernation. In summer it is going to move around the ice, because in winter so much of extreme temperature will be there. So to withstand that one, it hibernates in that sense. So these living organisms are going to show the responses according to the stimuli. Consciousness in the sense they are aware of the surroundings. So whatever may be the organism, like amoeba, a plant, insect, they are aware of their surroundings. So that awareness of the surroundings is called as consciousness. And human beings are the only living beings where they are aware of their surroundings and aware of themselves. Of themselves is called as self-consciousness. They are aware of their own body. That is self-consciousness. The human beings are the only living organisms where they are aware of their own body. Self-consciousness. And here also one exception is there. Like for example, a patient who is in coma. He is alive. All the metabolism and everything is going on, but he cannot respond to the external stimuli. Like if we give more heat, or if we slap, or in that room if we produce more temperature or less temperature, the body doesn't react at all, because he is brain dead, he is bedridden. So in that case, we cannot say that this particular ability to sense the environment is a characteristic feature. Then coming on to the interactions. Interactions are very, very important. Okay, interactions between the cells, interactions between the tissues, interactions between the organs and organ systems, how they coordinate and work together for the whole organism to work and live is very, very important. Like for example, in a cell, mitochondria, chloroplast, both are present. So both respiration and photosynthesis should take place. They should coordinate, those two processes coordinate and make the organism living and work together. So the interactions between the cell organelles, between the tissues, between the cells is very, very important. So these are the characteristic features of the living organisms. Okay. So in this one, the defining property of a living organism is main thing is the metabolism. Coming on to the next subtopic, diversity in the living world. the term diversity. What does the term diversity mean? It's different forms. There are different forms of living world. Just now I told you, like we have discussed that while going to a college, while going from one place to another place, we are going to see different things like plants, animals. In plants also, small herbs, shrubs, trees. So in living organisms, diverse forms, different forms of living organisms are there. So in this diversity of the living world, we should learn about those things. There are about 1.7 to 1.8 million. This is only a number. I think it is more than this also. But so many different forms of living organisms are there on the earth. Okay, so in order to learn about them, it is very much important for that particular organism to be identified. Means identification is must. Then naming of an organism, that is nomenclature, and classification. Classification in the sense learning about them in deeply, classifying them into groups having the similar characteristics. So all these play an important role to learn about a particular living organism, in this diverse world. So identification, nomenclature, classification plays a very, very important role. So coming on to first one is identification. Identification. See, a particular plant is there. First of all, if a particular plant is there, first of all we should know whether it is already known one or a new one, or a new variety. You should understand whether it is a new one or an already existing one, or a study is there. For that one to understand, we can compare it with the herbarium, with the keys and floras. So suppose if that particular organism or a plant or a fruit is already known, or animal is already known, so how are we going to identify them? Take for example the cat. So here in Telangana, in Telangana, Hyderabad, it is called as in Telugu it is called as pilli. Whereas in North place it is called in Hindi it is called as billi. Whereas if you go to European countries and foreign countries it is called as cat. So for a one particular organism, different names are there. In this particular area also, different names are there in different languages. So local names are there. So in order to avoid this particular confusion, a particular name must be given to a particular name must be given to it. That is a nomenclature. Naming of an organism is nomenclature. Nomenclature. So first of all, you have to identify whether it is a known one or a new one. Then after knowing about it, you have to name that particular organism, which is common in all areas. It is common to all anamata. Like throughout the world, it should be identified as one organism. So this has been done by the ICDN. That is International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. For plants, it is botanical nomenclature. For animals, it is zoological nomenclature. Okay, International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. So what does this particular organization do? It is going to lay down all the different principles and all rules and regulations in order to study the plants. And one particular scientific names are given to it, and that should be followed throughout the world. It should be one. So it is going to lay down the rules and regulations and principles for naming of an organism or naming of the plant. Here botanical, no, so it's plant for naming and studying of the organisms, plants. Then in nomenclature, right now what we are following is the binomial nomenclature. Binomial nomenclature. The name itself says what it is. Means naming of an organism with two words. Bi means two, nominal, nomenclature. Nomenclature, naming. Binominal means two names. So a particular organism is named with two words. Okay, so scientific name or the biological name or the botanical name is going to have two words. The first one is generic name. The second one is nothing but the specific epithet or species name. This binomial nomenclature was first introduced by Gaspard Boehm. But at that time, nobody knew about it, and it was not at all followed. It was just binomial nomenclature. Nobody followed it. But it became popularized. It started it was first followed by Carolus Linnaeus. Carolus Linnaeus. He was the one who made this particular binomial nomenclature popular, and he followed it. He followed and named so many organisms with the two words. The first word generic name, second word specific epithet. So this particular ICBN has laid down few rules or principles. Okay, so whatever the scientific name or biological name or botanical name is given to an organism, it should be derived from Latin language, and it should be written in italics. So it should be derived from Latin language, and it should be written in italics. It should be written in italics. It should be derived from Latin irrespective of their origin. Then that biological name, it should be of two words. The first word is generic name or genus. The second one is specific epithet or species name. Two words are given. Then when it is handwritten, when the scientific name is handwritten, it should be underlined. It should be underlined separately. Means the generic name should be underlined separately. Specific epithet should be underlined separately. And it should be, if it is printed, it should be written in italics. Then the generic name, the first letter of the generic name should always be a capital letter. The first word is generic name. Okay, so the first letter of the generic name should be a capital letter. Then the first letter of the specific epithet should be a small letter. Take for example Mangifera indica. So Mangifera indica. So how it is written? Capital M, Mangifera indica. So Mangifera is a genus name. Indica is the specific epithet or species name. The first letter in the generic name M is written capital. The first letter in the species name specific epithet I is written in a small letter. So it should be written like that. If it is handwritten, it should be separately underlined. If it is printed, it should be written in italics. Printed in italics. It should be of Latin language, Latin origin. Then sometimes name of the author. Name of the author means the person who has first described it or who has first introduced it. That also can be written after the specific epithet, like this, Lin. So Lin is the name of the author or the person who first introduced this particular fruit into the study and matter. Okay, so Linnaeus, it can be written like this, Linnaeus. So by this naming, it becomes easy for us to study and learn about them. And also the classification. The classification is also very much important. Classification means grouping of the organisms, grouping of the similar organisms together and learning about them and studying about them. Classification means grouping of the similar organisms together and learning about them. Like for example, we have said like trees, plants, herbs, cats, dogs, insects. So here trees, herbs, shrubs are plants, whereas dogs, cats, birds are animals. So they are grouped under two different plants and animals. So the classification also plays an important role. Then the study which deals with the identification, nomenclature and classification of the living organisms is called as taxonomy. Okay, it is a study. The study which deals with the identification, nomenclature and classification of all the living organisms is called as taxonomy. Taxonomy, and the basic unit of taxonomy is nothing but taxon. So if we say a plant, so it's a taxon. Species is a taxon, like that. In detail we'll study in the next video. Then another study is there which is called as systematics. Systematics is also same as that of taxonomy only. That means the study which deals with identification, nomenclature, classification of the living organisms. But here in systematics, we are going to take into account of the evolution relationships. Means how they were in the past and how they are present. What evolution has got that modification, has got that change. The change is brought in those particular organisms. So evolution relationships are studied in the systematics. Okay, systematics. The father of taxonomy is Carolus Linnaeus, because he was the first one. He was not the first. He was the one who popularized the binomial nomenclature and taxonomy. Father of taxonomy. Thank you.